Welcome everyone to a China teaser from Kaiserreich. Now, I just thought I'd just comment on this a tiny bit. This was just released on the Kaiserreich Reddit subreddit thing. So you can see it's like somewhere over here. Where the hell is it? I don't see it for some reason. Okay, yeah, new China teaser, the Legation Cities. And it's actually really interesting. So I just thought I'd comment on a couple of things because it might have, might have some clues about things. So first of all, you can see kind of a glimpse of the map, but you all, kind of know what the map looks like. First glance tells us that the Legation Cities has kind of shrunk. They don't have Tianjin, I don't think, although it's not showing, so maybe they do. Maybe they do. Also, German China has a new port, and that's Wenzhou. You see that kind of that brownish thing. That's AOG. That's the new AOG. So they control Wenzhou, and yeah, I think that the Legation Cities also control Fuzhou, which is this little port. Why? Because if you look like closely over here, it's kind of hidden by this tab over here, but there's a little tiny thing. It's difficult to see, but the UI looks like a friendly owned port, and that's that positioning would be accurate. So yeah, that would be that. Anyway, going further on into what the teaser is showing us, you see we're gonna go first from the political stuff, and then go ahead and look at the other things. So you can see the parties. There's a few different parties over here. And the leader is Cornel Franklin, who is this man. Just some lawyer person. And he was the chairman of the Shanghai Municipal Council, which was the leading sort of executive council of the Shanghai International Settlement, which is essentially the inspiration for the Legation Cities. And the Legation Cities are essentially a Shanghai International Settlement, just turned up to 11. So yeah. And this was kind of a state within a state in China that was established under the treaty port system, where essentially foreigners had what was called the right of extraterritoriality. Essentially, foreigners living in China, especially British, American, and French, later Germans and Japanese, and all that, essentially had the same rights in China as they had in their own native country, so they could be tried by their own courts. A little bit like how the church members cannot be tried by the courts of the country, but only by the courts of the church. And so yeah, essentially foreigners living in China did not have to abide by Chinese law in a way. And this was a major point of contention, obviously, for Chinese nationalists. And the heart of this system were the treaty ports and the concessions. The concessions were these small areas of essentially, it was technically Chinese sovereignty, but really it was internationally controlled. And yeah, essentially they kind of served as, you could say like progress entries for Western capital, Western businessmen into China. And yeah, so that's the international mandate for the Chinese concessions. You can see, I'm just gonna very quickly show you the text. More popularly known as the Legation Cities, this body is headed by the Legation Council and holds power over all the ports and cities under it, with the effective authority of a nation to regulate, tax, and govern within the territories given to it as a trust by the consular powers. That is, when the council can agree on anything. So this is referring to what happens in the Kaiserreich universe, which is China kind of explodes, British colonies in Asia and French colonies in Asia kind of explode. So the remnants of the Entente, the Germans, the Americans, and the remnants of all the other colonial powers get together and quote-unquote guarantee the safety and security of foreign interests in China, and so just kind of take over a few ports. So the key mechanic that they're kind of advertising is the Legation Council, which is going to be about the bickering of the different major powers within the Legation Council. And it says even, of course, if the council proves ineffective, aka, in the votes over there, you can see that they're going to have a vote mechanic. If in the votes you have a deadlock, we could always find other ways, which, probably requires bribery or something like that. It's gonna be pretty good. Also, they're teasing this leader over here, Patrick Hurley, who in real life was an interesting person. Look him up on Wikipedia. Very interesting person. And yeah, he has some funny anecdotes about his life. So, looking at the political parties, there's a few interesting things now. First of all, I have no idea what the CSP is. Actually, let's just go from National Populist all the way to Totalist. So the National Populist is the Yiguan Dao. I haven't... yeah, let's just bring it up. The Yiguan Dao is, of course, yeah, Zhang Tianran, or it's also known as Shangqing Tianguo in Kaiserreich. And... it turns from a religion to a political movement, and well, whatchamacallit. Also, I'm kind of tired of this. Let's see if I can. Wow, are you kidding me? Are you gonna have German music? Yes, you will have German music. Please, Chinese music. Okay, good. So, essentially, the Yiguan Dao is that. So, in Kaiserreich over here, you could see in the top part of the screen, that orange little country, that's where the Yiguan Dao are powerful. And yeah, that's essentially, they're trying to expel the foreigners or whatever, doing all that stuff. And yeah, that's what they are. The China Agency, I have no idea what that is, but considering the fact that it does have a popularity, unlike the Yiguan Dao and some of the other ones, I'm thinking that it's going to play a kind of part. And my personal theory is that this top right screenshot, the undercut the council one, is going to be about the China Agency, which might just be, some Chinese nationalist organization trying to retake control. The other option for the undercut the council might just be the far left, but we're going to get to the far left in a bit. Then you can see that there is the international mandate, which is just, the established legation powers. Then there's other branches of the legation powers. There's the free liberal democratic quote-unquote parties are the Ostchina Direktorium, which sounds pretty German, so a vehicle of German influence. The AmCham Shanghai, which is the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, so that's obviously American. And the Hong Kong Club, which is British, and this one's actually the oldest one of them all. And yeah. Apparently, it still exists. So, cool. And of course, it instantly goes to... okay, thank you. Yeah, so that's the free normal democratic society, democratic parties. Then there is the Vermilion Society, which is the social democratic. And they actually do have a popularity, 4%. Not sure where that comes from, because I have no idea what the hell the Vermilion Society is. Just absolutely no idea. Might be a kind of literary society, because the name society and not party tells me that maybe there's something like left writers, something like that. League of Left-Wing Writers. Now, during the New Culture movement, which in China was in the 1920s, which in Kaiserreich would not be happening, there were a bunch of new movements for literature and culture to promote a you know, a more westernized, scientific, and in the end socialist style of culture. And one of them, the most important one, was the League of Left-Wing Writers over here, which was essentially a companion organization, a front organization of the CCP and the Chinese Communist Party. Other ones that were sort of like this existed under the name of something society, you know. So, for example, the Crescent Moon Society, but there were others, you know, there were a bunch. Like if we look at the New Culture movement, I'm pretty sure that Wikipedia here would be helpful and tell us a few things. It doesn't really say all that much, unfortunately, but yeah, maybe we'd have to go back a little bit more, you know, back over to the Qing period to find more, but whatever, that's fine. So that's basically, I think, what that's kind of about. I'm not 100% sure though, but they do have a popularity, so maybe they're gonna play some kind of role. Who knows? And then there's the free far left ones, which are very interesting. Obviously, the CSP, the Syndicalist, probably the Chinese Syndicalist Party, probably not gonna play a role. Who knows? The totalist one is the KMT Xintefa. I have no idea what Xintefa is supposed to mean, so I will not try. But KMT, so that's a wing of the Chinese Nationalist Party. Now the KMT, in case you do not know, is Kuomintang, or Guomindang if we're speaking Chinese. Yeah, that was the Nationalist Party, which essentially tried to lead China from 1911 to 1949, then retreated to Taiwan, where they are today as one of the parties within the Republic of China, which they founded. Although right now they're not the ruling party, but you know, they might win the next elections. Who knows? Yeah, essentially, in real life, the KMT turned to the right wing after essentially the Northern Expedition and the division between the left wing of the party and the right wing of the party. There was a big civil war kind of thing. They massacred the communists who were allied to them earlier. It was just a mess. Whereas in the Kaiserreich universe, the main leader for what would become the mainstream of the KMT, aka Chiang Kai-shek, who in reality was not really a member of the KMT right, he was just the leader of the KMT military, because the KMT as a party, to achieve national unification under the Republican flag and destroy the warlords, had to create its own military. So it was a party with a military, pretty much under the model of the Russian Communist Party, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. And Chiang Kai-shek over here, this man, was the leader of the military. And he was not actually a member of the KMT right wing, at least at the beginning. He was more of a compromiser, but in the end he sided with the right wing. And so the KMT turned into an anti-left, anti-communist party, whereas the left wing of the KMT was disbanded and never really surfaced ever again. In Kaiserreich, you have that Chiang Kai-shek, that man over here, dies, and you have that the Chinese Republic is defeated. So in some areas of the country, for example, Shanghai, which is the most internationalized, or we'd say globalized today, but yeah, you could say globalized and westernized part of the country. So the part with the most industries, so the part with the most space for left-wing political parties to really operate in, you have that the KMT is mostly a left-wing party. Okay, so that out of the way. The KMT totalist is called Xintefa. I have no idea what that is. Probably will not play a part. Who knows? Then the other one is the radical socialist, which is the KMT Minsheng, and that's another interesting little thing. Minsheng is this. It's one of the three principles of the people, so-called, which was the kind of ideological framework of this man, who was the founder of the Nationalist Party, Sun Zhongshan or Sun Yat-sen or Sun Wen, whatever the fuck you want to call him. This guy has so many names. Yeah, Minsheng is the third one and one of the most controversial ones, especially because of the way that these things are translated now. They're just like in Chinese, these things have their own meanings, but when they're translated into English, Minsheng, which kind of literally means the people's livelihood, or sometimes also translated as government for the people, or welfare, or Georgism, or sometimes even socialism. Sometimes this principle is translated as socialism. It's just kind of like a generic commitment for the state to provide for the livelihood of the people. It's also kind of a Chinese traditional, like you could say, concept, and like you can find people saying Minsheng or writing Minsheng in like old Chinese books and stuff, so it's nothing new. But yeah, it's just a pretty expansive concept. In here, it's used as a left-wing thing, obviously, and what that kind of tells me is that there's going to be obviously some interesting things that are going to come up with Chinese radical left, politics. Now, with the other teasers that they have, there's obviously the undercut the council focus, which is going to lead probably to a Chinese takeover of the legations. But what kind of Chinese? Again, I myself am thinking, because the China agency has 14% popularity, it's going to be the China agency to be some kind of Chinese nationalist society, which would be kind of mimicking and really referencing a historical event when Shanghai over here was taken over by the Small Sword Society, kind of in conjunction with the Taiping Rebellion, which is another thing that we cannot get into. But yeah, this happened in 1850 when Shanghai was still relatively small, and like this Chinese secret society took over Shanghai. So I'm thinking that maybe the China agency is some kind of secret society, maybe, who knows, and they get to collaborate with, you see there, Du Yuesheng and Zhang Xiaolin, who are two of Shanghai's big three kind of gangster lords. You can see this one is Zhang Xiaolin, the other Du Yuesheng, or big ears Du, because he has big ears. You see the picture there. And there's actually this interesting article on Global Times, Murder, Mayhem, and Money, that explains a little bit of their story. So that's kind of interesting. You can go ahead and look that up. So yeah, they can work with the triads, and who, well, at the beginning they also were secret societies, but then became criminal gangs. Yeah, there's just a whole big tradition of Chinese secret societies trying to restore, in some way, Chinese rule over Chinese lands throughout, essentially, from the 17th century all the way to the end of the 19th, with the Boxer Rebellion. And yeah, it's kind of an interesting ordeal altogether. Like, you can really read some interesting things about that, and it's really, really nice. Yeah, so there's that. Then there's that most cryptic one, which is pieces of a puzzle down there, whose icon, the icon of that focus is like China with a red star. So who knows what that could be? Might that be something to deal with the left wing guys because it's a red star? Might that be that some kind of Chinese nationalist organization, whether it be left-wing or right-wing, takes over in the legation cities and then tries to reunite China from there somehow? That would be pretty great. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. Then there's the two spirits, which also have some mechanics with them. There is the currency reserves, which right now are rich, apparently. The currency reserves of the legation cities represent liquid cash and assets held by the Legation Council and Shanghai Municipal Council legally and illegally. Should it fall too low, there will be harsh consequences as the cities slide into bankruptcy. So yeah, there's some kind of mechanic with your currency, which does make a lot of sense considering that China in the 1920s was an absolute currency chaos. Every province had its own currency, even though there was technically a united currency for the whole country, the Nanjing dollar, or yuan, as you can call it, which was later replaced by what we still call yuan, which is the renminbi, the people's currency. Essentially, everyone was doing whatever they could to just print as much money as they could. It was just absolute chaos. There was problems with the silver reserves because the currency was backed by silver. It was a silver standard system. You see a little bit of that in actually vanilla Hearts of Iron 4. So yeah, that's kind of that. And then there's the Shanghai Volunteer Corps, which was the military in real life of the Shanghai International Settlement. Now you might be saying, well, wasn't that supposed to be Chinese sovereignty? And that's why I say it was kind of a dual power, because this militia kind of thing was formed in 1853 because of the uprising of the Small Sword Society, which is the one that I was talking about earlier. So to kind of defend the legation quarters from these weird Chinese people. And they also defended Shanghai when the Taiping's rebels were coming in to take over, which is kind of funny because the Taipings were more pro-foreigner than the Qing. But, you know, because of commercial interest, the foreigners defended the Qing against the Taiping. It's a whole massive just clusterfuck over there. And they essentially were kind of supposed to, again, defend the legations against any kind of threats. So that's the military of the legations, and you can see that there's a minus 80% recruitable population factor because, again, this militia is only recruited from Westerners. And I'm not sure if like over here, Shanghai Mobile Police District, Ningbo Police District, Hong Kong Police District. Looks like there's mostly just police over here. Yeah, here there is... Yeah, okay, so apparently here in the current version of Kaiserreich, the legation military is a native recruitment, whereas here it is recruited from the foreigners living in the settlements. So yeah, that's why minus 80%, and that's also why plus 5% recovery rate, and apparently minus 75% required for sending volunteer force and plus 5 volunteer force divisions, even though it was volunteers within legation cities. But apparently you can make the legation cities into kind of a, I don't know, volunteer intervener kind of guy. Anyway, that's the end of that. I hope you've enjoyed it, and yeah, if there's any more tiers that are interesting, I will surely look at them. Have a good day.